any others? So they tell us that this point is plotted, and it's going to be a direct variation. So the things you know about direct variation, it has to go through the origin. The constant has to be the same between all the points. So you have to plot two other points. One of them can be your origin. And if you're counting either from the graph or doing your y over x, either way, you'll see that that k value is 1/2. So somewhere else, either go up and to the right 2 or down 1 and to the left 2 and draw another point. There are many different options you could have used. If you want to do like up 1 to the right 2 like 3 times and that be your point, that would work as long as it matches. Questions on that one? Other questions on this? Take out your inverse variation notes if you don't already have those out. Just like last class, I'm going to give you the option of practice for about 20 minutes before we start our new thing. The practice will really help you for what we're going to talk about because we need refreshers on that stuff. So in the inverse variation notes on the very last couple of pages, you could be working on these practice problems, 2, 4, 7, and 8, and then on the word problems, 7, 9, and 10. Or if you have not done the 2 Khan Academies that are due this week, you could be working on those. So you need to be working on one of those. You should not be on your phones doing other things or working on other schoolwork, right? So it is 8, it's got to be 8:48, so I'll wait for that. I feel like that was what time it was last time. It's weird. So it's 8:48, so you have 20 minutes. So at 9:08, we will start our new lesson. We're going to review those a little bit more today, and then the last objective that we need to talk about is joint and combine, which you could probably guess what that means. Either one or the other, maybe a mixture of both, something like that. So we're going to get into that. So first, so that you have these things to review fresh in your mind. Direct variation, to find the constant, we use that ratio, y over x. You can follow along up here or on your paper as I go through this. Your inverse, to find your constant k, you multiply x and y, or y or x. The equation form for direct is y equals k times x. Inverse is y equals k over x. There are some examples. Notice how they are different. Direct can have a fraction, but it's in front of the x. Inverse is a fraction with x in the denominator, so keep those separate. The check is like the ratio or the product. The graph for direct has to be a line that goes through the origin. The constant has to be the same throughout. The inverse, so we didn't talk about what this word is called, but it creates this shape. It's called a hyperbola. And then I wrote something different on this. I changed it. But whatever I wrote on yours is accurate. So use the ratio or product to find k, put that k value into your equation, and then put in missing values. Okay. On the next page, we're going to just go through some of these so you can recall, is this direct, is this inverse, or is it a neither-neither case? With number 1, look at how that looks, refer back to your notes if need be, try to get it in your mind of what those look like without looking at your notes up. Is this direct, inverse, or neither? It is inverse. And we can say it's inverse because the x is in the denominator. What about number 2? Direct, inverse, or neither? It's neither. It would be direct if it didn't have this +1, but because it has that +1, it's neither. It is a line, yes, but it doesn't go through the origin. Right? Number 3. We can solve this. Divide both sides by 4. I'm going to leave this like this first, and then I'll change it afterwards. Can we determine what it is from just this? It is direct because you can rewrite this as y equals 1/4 x. So anytime you have a number in the denominator, you can always rewrite it so that it's a fraction, and that fraction comes before the x. So this is direct. Okay. Number 4. Now you could change this so that it's a y equals, but you could also look at x times y equals a number. Is that direct, inverse, or neither? Think about how you find your k for both. It is inverse. So if you notice that it's in this format and you're multiplying x and y together to equal a number, you don't have to change it. It's already inverse. Right? Then we're going to skip around a little bit. Right? 9. So if you get a table like this and it doesn't say whether it's direct or inverse, you either need to start multiplying, see if they all give you the same thing, or start dividing and see if they give you the same thing. So let's say we multiply first, just because that's what I chose. If we start multiplying all of these, this last one is 31.5 times 20. Someone tell me what that is. 32.5 times 12.
30.
And then 4 times 7.5.
30.
Okay. So because we multiply them and they all were the same, then we can say this is inverse. If that did not work, we started multiplying and they got different numbers, it would not be inverse. We wouldn't automatically assume it's direct either because we'd have to check and divide it and see. Questions on 9 before we move on? Okay. 10. I feel like multiplication wouldn't work, but let's just try it just to see. 31 times 217. What is it? 6,727. Okay. 20 times 140.
28.
Okay, so not multiplication. The inverse is out. So now let's try direct. Try dividing and see if they are all the same. 217 over 31. 7. 140 over 20. 119 over 17. Also 7. And 84 over 12. Don't assume it's going to be the same just because 3 of them were the same. It could not be. So always make sure that you checked every single one. So this is direct. Questions on that? Yes. To find your k value, yes. Multiplication to find your k value for inverse. Division to find your k value for direct. Okay. Skip to the next page. $15. Direct, inverse, or neither. For 15. Direct. With the line that goes through the origin, the constant is the same throughout all your points. 17. Direct, inverse, or neither. Inverse. Making that hyperbola shape. 18. Direct, inverse, or neither. Neither. Because it's not a line, it's not this. Anything that is not a line and not this is neither. Right? Before we move on to other examples, in this page and that last page, are there any others we want to see, go over, have questions about? If not, go to this next page. So now we actually get into the joint and combined piece of it. So you'll either see the direct and inverse together, or you'll see maybe just one or the other. Pay attention to the words. Okay? Sometimes your variables will change. We just have to look at what's given and pay attention to the words as well. Okay? Directly is the same as before. When you hear the words directly, you're going to put it in the y equals kx format, but the variables might be different. So if it varies directly, this is going to be a y equals. The k is still going to be there, but now instead of x, we have the square of x. How would we write that? The square of x. What do we think? Not plus, just x squared. Try not to confuse this with the square root of x. If it doesn't say square root, don't put square root. The second one was supposed to be changed. This one we can say square root. So it'll look very similar to that first one. If it varies directly, it's going to be still in that format, y equals kx, but the variables or whatever might change. So y varies, y equals, k is still going to be there, but now with the square root of x, we would use the square root symbol and put x in it. The word jointly, think about directly, they kind of go hand in hand. When you are multiplying your variables together, they'll be next to one another. So if z varies jointly with x and y, all of these have to have a k somewhere. Z varies tells us this is going to be a z equals. Jointly tells us all the variables are going to be right next to each other. So we need k, and then x and y. We have x and then y. Now, this next one is taking what we just did, but doing inversely with W. So when we think of inversely, we are dividing that variable. Anyone want to take a guess as to how we might write this one? It's going to be similar to what we just did, but somewhere we're dividing W. All over W, yes. So Z varies jointly with X and Y. All of those things are being multiplied. Well, Z equals, and then all those things are being multiplied. And inversely with W. So we're dividing that piece. This last one. Z varies directly with X and inversely with the product of W and Y. Anyone want to take a guess as to how we would write that one?
Z equals kx over wy.
Z equals kx over wy. Just like that. So it's all about paying attention to what the words say and knowing how to do whatever with the words. So directly with x means we're multiplying. If you want to write that as a side note. Inversely, we're dividing again. Product W and Y have to multiply together. So if you can pick out the pieces and parts, you can put them all together. Okay, questions on any of those before we get into some actual examples? All right. So we're going to start with number 1. Some of these are going to be very similar to things we've already done, just the variables are different. I accepted your passage. So here, variable m varies directly with p. How would we write that equation? Close. Use m instead of y. So m equals kp. So whatever variables are there, make sure you use those. If they don't give you variables, then you can make up your own or use your own or just use y and x. But think about anytime it gives you a problem like this, whatever comes first is still like your y. Whatever comes second is still like your x. So it still works the same. So if you want to put that so you know which one is which, you could actually do that. Now the process that we've been doing all this time has not changed just because the variables did. Right? We know this is direct. So to find our direct constant, we have to divide 75 and 10. I believe that's 7.5. Yeah. The variables next to each other, yes. To find k is dividing. Right? So once we find our k, then we can put that back into our equation. Look at what they give us. We need to find m when p is 16. Multiply those and figure out what m is. Say that one more time. One time. If this were a word problem, we would put whatever label behind it, but it wasn't, so 120 is our final answer. The check method still works for all of these problems, so if you want to check yourself, you can. Divide 120 and 16. You should get 7.5. Do we? Yeah. Questions on that? So what's nice is the process hasn't changed. So we're not learning something really new. It's just we're adding things to what we've already done. Okay, let's do number 2. Again, something we've already done, but the variables have changed. R varies inversely with the variable t. How would we write that equation? Yes. R equals k over t. Your R in this case would be your y. Your t in this case would be your x. If you want to label them as such, you can. Just don't change your variables in the problem. Now that we are dealing with inverse, okay, mindset on inverse, our k, we are now multiplying 168 and 24. Multiply those, tell me what you get. Put that into your equation. So R equals 4,032 over T. Now we're looking for R when T is 30. Divide that and tell me what R is. Say that one more time. 134.1. Just to check ourselves, if we were to multiply this and 30, we should get 4,032. Does that work? Yes. Questions on that one? Let's go on to the next page. We're going to do 3 and then 5, and then we'll see how much time's left. Three is now a varies jointly, so think about what that means. Variable y varies jointly with p and q. How would we write that equation? Not over. And we're missing something. Okay. Jointly is always multiplying, so put those variables together. Don't forget your k, because that's kind of like the whole point. If you miss your k, you miss your equation. Right? Then they give us a bunch of numbers, so put all of those in. 144. K, we don't know. P is 12. Q is 8. So when you have something that's jointly, you're going to put in all the numbers they give you and then use that to solve for K. Here we have 144 equals 96. Multiply that, tell me what that is. Okay. I don't know if I'm wrong. Okay. Then we can divide both sides by 96. What is K?
125.
Okay. after we find our K, the process is the same. Put in your K value first. So y equals 1.5 PQ. Look and see what you're given, what you don't have. We are looking for y, so that's going to say y. We know K is 1.5. We know P is 15, and Q is 25. Multiply those all together. The check for this is a little different because you'd have to take the number you're given and divide the other two numbers you're given and see if you get 1.5. So if there's more numbers, you just have to divide more numbers or multiply more numbers, whatever it is, whatever it says. Do we have any questions on number 3? We're going to skip 4 because that's really just a similar word problem we've already done that's only dealing with inversely. And I want to talk about 5. So variable t varies directly with the square of m. How would we write that equation? Say that one more time. T equals km squared. Yes. After we do that, then we can, because this is directly and we only have 2 variables besides the k, t would be like our y, m would be like our x. However, because this is squared, just put in the numbers you have, kind of like what we just did. So t is 8, we don't know k, and we know m is 2 squared. We're still going to end up dividing, but we need to square it before we divide. So we square it and then divide both sides by 4. So that 2 equals k. Put that into your original equation. So t equals 2m squared. Then it asks us find t when m is 4. So put 4 in. And simplify and figure out what t is. Because this would be 2 times 16. The only one we didn't do on this set of questions is 4. Did we want to see 4? Yes. The volume V of a gas varies inversely as the pressure in a container. So still, whatever comes first is like your y, even though it's V, so leave it as V, but we could just say that's like our y. The pressure does not have a variable, so you can either say that's xp, whatever variable you want. if the volume of a gas, I'm going to put that as a B, when the pressure is 1.6 liters per square centimeter. So in these type of problems, make sure you set up your equation, especially if they have different variables. Set up your equation first. V equals K over P, because it's inversely. Use the numbers you have to find K by either putting it in here and solving for K or just multiplying. Multiply that, tell me what you get. Then we can put that value back into our equation. V equals 320 over P. Find the volume to the nearest tenth, so it might be a decimal, when the pressure is 2.8. So V equals 320 over 2.8. Divide that, see what you get. And then our label for volume would be CC. Questions on that? So we're going to do some more application with joint and combine next class. I'm also going to give you your review for the following class. And then you'll have time to also practice. There aren't any Khan Academies for this. So I would say for practice, just use these, go through the practice at the end. For the rest of the class, you can practice in this, practice in inverse, practice in direct, work on Khan Academy, work on any of that. Let me know if you need my help, have any questions, anything like that.